Good morning, and good morning, Ryan. Thanks for joining me.
Good morning, Rex. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so happy to have you on this recording here. It's June 18th, 2020. We've got Ryan Yantis with us today. We're coming to you from outside of Elmhurst, Illinois at 613 Studios. My name's Rex Plamann. I'm a partner at DDSmatch, serving Chicagoland dental practice owners. We serve dental practice owners that are facing potential transitions in their practice with ownership. So it's practice sales, it's recruitment of associates, and the formulation of partnerships that we specialize in. But it's not about us today. It's really about Ryan Yantis and the great organization that he has founded called Silverleaf Leadership Communication out of Crystal Lake, Illinois. And how's your summer going, Ryan?
Well, we're doing surprisingly well, Rex, and thanks for asking, and thank you for having me on here. Before the camera started, we talked about the challenges of being in a stay-at-home, work-at-home environment. My wife, who normally works in the Loop, has been working from home since March, and we're failing at the working from home. We're still happily married, and we're still losing weight and staying healthy. So we're failing at those aspects of the staycation.
That's great. Yeah, our summer's going pretty good down here in Elmhurst, and I told somebody the other day I got to go and present some gifts to some of my neighbors, the folks in the neighborhood with all the swimming pools that are entertaining our children every afternoon. And luckily, we've been blessed with really good weather, I'd say, for the last 3 weeks around here. But since, the children's activities have been really minimized this summer, it's nice to have those great parents with the pools down the road. So I'll be presenting some pizzas and cookies to them in the future here to keep them happy and wearing out our children in the evening. So Ryan, you were a world-class swimmer. You were an Eagle Scout. You are a retired lieutenant colonel with the Army. And, I know you've gained a lot of insight and experiences and other, facets from this experience. But unfortunately, you were at the Pentagon on 9/11 and thankfully survived that disaster that struck the United States. A little bit about your business, and I look forward to you sharing some things about that experience at the Pentagon. But Silverleaf Leadership Communication you started focuses to help people become the best leaders they can be in any business setting, which is fantastic, and that'll relate really well for our dentists here that are tuning in. You use some great leadership training and coaching techniques using academy leadership programs. In addition, I saw so many places online where you've presented to groups, schools, businesses, etc. So I think that's really good for the people to know in the dental market or for any community that you could serve or business environment. So thank you so much for joining us, Ryan. Really appreciate it. I'd like to kind of back up a little bit to, your days prior to the military and how did you get into the military, if you don't mind me saying?
Well, great question, and thank you for it. I was a scholarship athlete at University of Missouri-Columbia, and when I went to register in 1979, there was a PE requirement for all freshmen. And I was stubborn, and guys, I already work out. I swim 3 hours a day. I am not taking a PE class. And it just didn't make sense to me. My schedule was already set. And they talked to me and told me, no, it's a requirement. And I got frustrated and more stubborn. And finally, one of the registrars, a little lady, came around and said, look, there's this map reading class. You were a Boy Scout. You like the woods. It's ROTC, it counts as a PE credit. Would you be willing to try that? And I said, yes, I would. So I'm the special kind of stupid that took a map reading class with the Army to avoid co-ed, badminton, or bowling. And fortunately for me, 1980, we didn't do the Summer Olympics in Moscow, which would have been the year, had I made the Olympic team, that would have been my year. But
wow.
I found out I was good at the Army. The Army liked me. They offered me a scholarship. Being part of the Army also gave me the personal connection that was lacking in swimming. Swimming is a very solitary sport. You put your face in water for 3 to 5 hours a day. You're a lot of alone time. And my personality type was emerging that I thrived on working with other people and being part of a dynamic team. And it worked out. I liked the Army. 22 and a half years later, I retired as a lieutenant colonel. And after a number of other things, I started Silverleaf, which is a nod to my retirement rank in the Army, because it's a silver oak leaf is the signal for the insignia for a lieutenant colonel rank. And that's why Silverleaf's the name and my call sign, if you will.
Love it. Love it. So, we're coming out of unprecedented times. Just when you think, disaster can't strike us again, all of a sudden this pandemic comes out of nowhere, a corresponding economic shutdown. And then we've got all the social unrest going on here across this country of ours. And it's no doubt put a big stress on our business owners in every market, not just dentistry. But, when I think of practice owners every day here dealing with things coming back and having to rebound, what comes to mind for you that needs to be there from the leaders of these dental practices to get these businesses back up and running?
Well, if I was running a dental practice, my focus would be on the team and working with whether it's the front counter staff that welcomes clients in the door, the hygienist, the back of house folks, the dentist and associates who are providing the services, the technicians. You put together the best possible team. Make sure that they know that you're there and you're concerned about them, their well-being, and you want them to be focused on your clients. And having that client focus, getting them comfortable with the new realities and being nimble enough to adjust to, well, we don't want to have a waiting room where people are sitting and warehoused waiting for us to be ready for them. How do we do just-in-time dentistry where we finish with Miss Smith, get her cleaned up, clean the space, get her out, and you bring in Mr. Jones into the new safe environment without losing a whole lot of time and taking care of people at the same time, your team and your clients. That's going to be tough.
Yeah, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. And prior to all of this chaos, as I call it, how were you supporting business owners? What were they coming to you with as far as challenges going on in their business environments?
Well, for many of the employers and leaders that I dealt with, it was a very tight job market. And the worry was, how do we acquire and hold on to the very best talent and take care of our people? How do I lead them more effectively? Because it's very expensive and painful and tight getting the right person hired. And if you don't spend money on training your people and developing your team, somebody else is going to be willing to do so. Or if they don't feel the love, if they don't feel that you're concerned about their best interest, people are going to migrate away to different opportunities. So the challenge moving forward is the labor pool is somewhat shifted, but the need for focusing on your people has only intensified. In that definition of who your people are, whether they're the peers, whether they're your staff, client focus, and making sure that they're comfortable and informed, that's going to be critical moving forward.
Yeah, no doubt. And over at Silverleaf, how do you like to take folks and sort of introduce them to the services that you provide? Where does that kind of start?
Well, the first word that pops into my mind when I'm dealing with a potential client is I want to find out as much about them and their challenges in their words as possible. And then that word is partnership. It's not, this is what the colonel says you need to do, but it's what do you think you need to do? And are you willing to listen to some feedback? Where do you think your weaknesses are? And if you look at knowing yourself, knowing your people, knowing your stuff, and then getting the job done, that's a great definition of leadership and success. But it starts with that discussion and finding out what your challenges are, whether it's a practice leader or a project manager who's working for multiple practices. How do I help you become the best you can be, authentic to yourself, so you can interact the best with people?
Yeah, you talked when we were talking earlier about that 684 word document of yours that you keep with you.
Right.
What's that all about?
So, have this as an example. It's a personal leadership philosophy. 684 words is mine. We say that every leader that wants to be really effective needs to draft and refine and polish and then share with their teams personal leadership philosophy. And it's not a philosophical treatise and some esoteric. It is very practical. What leadership means to you, how you define that, what your personal values are, what your operating principles are, what you can expect from your people. You're telling them what you expect of them. You tell them what they can expect from you, and a commitment to them and excellence. And then you outline for them your pet peeves, anything that's a non-starter or something that's going to get somebody fired. You tell them up front. And imagine being your first day into practice and the lead sits you down and says, here's my personal leadership philosophy. Don't read it right now. Take it, read it. It's a way of getting to know me. And it's kind of this open-ended contract. So if I'm not around and you're wondering what you would want me to do, here it is.
Yeah.
And that's giving people in the military. We talked about giving mission orders with intent. This is what I intend to happen. The leadership philosophy is a great way of telling people what your intent is and giving them what your end goal is. They might have a different way of getting to it, but as long as they stay within the parameters of behavior, comportment, and execution, how they get there is as not important as the end result.
Yeah, sure. I love that. I love that document. That's just a great philosophy to implement for folks. And we work a lot with dental practice owners they're thinking about their future plans, their post ownership plans in practice. And so getting towards retirement days and whatnot, and looking forward to that. And in that time frame of 2 to 5 years prior to sort of retiring, they really need to maximize the function of the practice, the wealth of the business, so that they truly have a great nugget to sell at the end with us. And what would be your advice for those folks as they're getting towards the climax of their career, so to speak?
Well, it's a great opportunity. And the analogy that popped into my mind was one of prepping a house for sale, but it'd also be, preparing a car for sale. You want to get it checked out. You want to get it diagnosed. What are all the problems? What are the hidden flaws? Get those addressed. Develop the very best team and practice that you can, because a potential client or a potential buyer who comes in and he sees a sullen workforce that's not engaged, that's not happy, that's going to impact on their interest in buying. If you have a workforce that's engaged, that's informed, that's dynamic, that's happy to be there, that's going to be infectious. Positivity is infectious, as is negativity. So you want to have the best possible team, and spending time training your subordinate and yourself makes your life easier. Now, leadership training is dynamic, it's demanding. You have to really work at it. It's like working out, whether you want to lose weight or improve your physical conditioning. Leadership is a learned behavior, and anybody can be a leader. Some people, it's easier for them to be a leader. Some people have to work very hard at it. But as long as you follow the basic principles of leadership, and you're transparent, you're accountable to yourself and others, you give honest feedback, you accept good feedback, and you operate with good ethics, that's going to help the practice prepare for a transition and put the most positive spin on it for the best return on investment.
Yeah, excellent advice. I appreciate hearing that, Ryan. I talk a lot about, and I overuse this phrase, respecting your exit from dentistry as much as you respected your entrance into dentistry. So you put so much into the career, going through school and residency, dedicating eight years of higher education, and then getting out into practice and trying to persevere through that and be successful. The exit's got to be just as important because it's going to resonate with you for a long time. So you want that to go well. You want that to be a feel-good moment and really a win-win for both sides when you transition your practice. So thanks again for sharing those thoughts, Ryan. And take us back now to that date of 9/11 and share with us that experience and the adversity that it sort of, taught you. And please share.
Well, thank you, Rex. And about 20 years ago today, I was preparing for my assignment into the Pentagon. It was not someplace that I had worked to get an assignment to. I didn't seek to work in that environment was not the one that I thrived in. Working with a bunch of generals and admirals in a very hierarchical environment, just not what I wanted. But it was my assignment. I was a major, and I led a team of Army spokesmen and women answering media questions from the Pentagon Press Corps and others about our soldiers and our Army, and learning more about and helping explain to the American people how their sons and daughters are serving. And that morning, we were aware through open source media reports of what was going on in New York, that there had been at first an accident reported with a plane hitting the World Trade Center. And then, like millions of other Americans, we watched on TV as the second plane hit at 9:03. And for me personally, at that moment, I knew it was a deliberate act and it was an attack of some sort. Who was responsible? I wasn't sure, but it didn't matter. I just knew we were going to be busy. As a leader, I was summoned to a meeting to talk about if New York asks for help, what can we send, what will we send? And we can't, due to the difference in federal and state laws, we can't go until we're asked or invited, but the U.S. Army can think and prepare. That's called contingency operations. And an officer and I were heading down to Corridor 4 for a meeting, and we got to between Corridors 4 and 5 on the E-ring, the outer ring of the Pentagon, and turned out that he didn't know where the meeting was at. He was a lieutenant colonel, I was a major. We argued briefly. I told him he was wasting our time. We were late for the meeting. Come on, sir, let's go. And when we walked into where the meeting was being held off of Corridor 7, about 3 minutes later, that's when the plane hit the building at Corridor 4. So had I not been stubborn, Henry Huntley and I would have been wandering around Corridor 4 when the plane hit. So, yeah.
Too close, my friend. Yeah.
When the lesson, if you know your boss is wrong, you got to tell them, and you need to make sure that they listen to you. Had I been complacent or not assertive, Henry and I would have been probably injured or killed. So that's luck.
Good lesson there. Good lesson there. My goodness. And from there, I know you had to fight through all kinds of adversity, getting assignments done, and really things aren't going well yet at the Pentagon. It's still pretty fresh, right?
Well, and in the immediate aftermath, the first part was making sure that everybody that was supposed to be evacuated out of the building got evacuated out and were safe. And accountability, making sure that all the people that were my responsibility or part of our office had made it out. So there were many of us that ended up going in and out of the building for the balance of the day. At first, just getting people to safety, going back in and getting more medical supplies as those ran low, helping carry people to first aid, lining up to go back in on search and rescue and aid and litter teams to recover more. It was a long, hot day. 125 people died in the Pentagon attack. There were 59 on the aircraft for 184. And that was a small percentage compared to what had happened in New York City. There was a lot of miscommunications. There was a lot of rumor. There was a lot of not knowing what was going to happen next. But there was a lot of people working to try to help others and putting themselves at risk doing the right things. And being part of that is very gratifying. I'm a happy witness to history, and I like to share my story with schools and with groups. I'm very fortunate to work with World Trade Center survivors, and we enjoy, as first-hand witnesses to history, sharing our stories, and especially educating young people.
Yeah, yeah. God bless you, Ryan, for going through that experience and becoming a rescuer too at the same time, not just yourself, but everybody, like you said, in New York City as well. And boy, how did life change so quickly there that day. And I'm glad we're past that, but you know.
Well, and that willingness to run into a burning building and putting yourself at risk, it's all calculated within nanoseconds between our ears. Okay, what's the risk? And things that I'd never thought were all that risky, other people have said, oh my God, how would you think to do that? Well, there were people in need, and the need was there. So I wasn't alone. And that was the impressive thing about 9/11, is how many people of all walks of life, all races, stopped and turned and went to try to help others and put themselves at risk in harm's way to do the right thing. 19 fellas stole airplanes and killed thousands, and thousands stood up and did the right things trying to help other people. And I'd rather focus on the folks that did the right things and tried to help than those that stole the airplanes and caused the pain.
Yeah, yeah, they didn't stop us. We're still the greatest country on this planet.
Mm-hmm.
And going back to Silverleaf Leadership, Ryan, you know, for dental practice owners out there, how do you generally like to start? We usually try to just start with a conversation, understands people's goals and plans and whatnot. How do you like to start to understand where people's needs might be and communicate?
And that's exactly it, Rex, and thank you for that. Having that conversation and finding out what their goal and their intent is. Is it that you have one person that you feel needs to have leadership training? If so, what's the areas you want to work on? We have some platforms that are available online, and we do them by Zoom. We have some workshops for teams and helping the teams communicate better, breaking down the silos and smoothing out differences within offices. The leadership philosophy, I have the opportunity of doing a couple of Zoom sessions where somebody will read our book, The Leader's Compass, and prepare a draft of their leader's philosophy. And then as a group, we'll review it, critique it professionally amongst ourselves. And that's followed up with some one-on-one coaching and implementation. But the focus is on finding out what the goal is of our client and what their needs are, and trying to find out if we're the right people to help them. And if somebody is dedicated and really wants to become a strong leader, we want to be there for them.
Fantastic, fantastic. You've been all around the globe serving with our military. Thank you for that service, big time, Ryan. Share with us. I'm just curious. You know, what's the best you've seen out there in countries or environments you've had to serve in, and maybe some of the worst you've seen too? Maybe not too much of that though.
Well, I really liked my time in Europe. I had about 8.5, 9 years in Europe, and any spot in Europe, I have a special affinity for southern Bavaria down towards the Austrian Alps. That's gorgeous country, very nice people. I speak a little German. Just enjoyed Europe altogether. Very physically pretty area that was very broken was Goma, Zaire, and Kigali, Rwanda in the summer of 1994 during the Rwandan refugee crisis. So that was after their genocidal civil war in Rwanda, where the Hutus and the Tutsis fought as political factions and tribes. And you saw people, 600,000 Hutu refugees in refugee camps just outside of Goma, Zaire, which had been a resort town back in the 50s and 60s. And when I was there, it was a broken town. They had shattered infrastructure. They had too many people. They didn't have safe, clean drinking water. And our mission within the Army was to go in and help stop the dying by getting them safe, clean drinking water from Lake Kivu. And it was simply a matter of rough filtration of this water, 100, 200,000 gallons per day, modest chlorination, and then transporting it out to the refugee camps where nonprofit, non-governmental organizations helped with the distribution. And again, you saw people helping those in need with a good effect.
Yeah. Oh, thanks for sharing that. Thanks for sharing that. A lot of beautiful places out there, and I hope to experience some of those spots as well that you mentioned there someday. Ryan, thanks so much for tuning in today. I'm grateful for the opportunity to introduce you to the dentists that are tuning into this recording. I know your leadership skills and organization will take great care of their businesses should they have any needs there. And again, I'm Rex Plamann with DDSmatch out of Chicagoland, serving dental practice owners facing dental transitions with the ownership of their business. For Ryan and myself, it all starts with a confidential and free conversation to get to know you and your plans, to see if there's any potential for us to partner in the future. We'll leave our names up with contact information so you can call us with any questions you might have. But this is 613 Studios signing out. Ryan, take care, and I look forward to talking to you soon, my friend.
Thank you, Rex. Great time.
You got it.